In the Philippines, many expats are living on US dollars. There is talk online that the US dollar is in trouble. Whenever you hear someone talk about the US dollar being doomed, ask them why. What you'll notice is they just sort of repeat what they're being told on TV. The reason is that nobody has a brain anymore. So we're going to base this assessment, on reality. The first thing to know is that not even quantum physics can predict the future, much less these nutballs on TV. So when you hear the dollar is going down, the person saying it won't be able to pinpoint the reason why they're saying the dollar's going down. It's just that since it's being talked about, it's kind of the path of least resistance. It's the common consensus, like this global warming crap, Is global warming real? Sure, the elites flying around in private jets are telling us global warming is real. You gonna believe them? Or the pay gap between the men and women? People believe it because they hear it. It's all a lie, but people believe it because that's what they're being told. It's the same with the US dollar, the collapse of the US dollar, to be specific for this vid. All you have to do to understand the reality is look at the specific situation in reality. In other words, take off your CNN goggles, your Fox News goggles. Don't listen to these people you're talking to. If all they're doing is regurgitating what these two entities are telling them, they're just repeating it and telling you. They're not using their brains. Using your brain is the easiest thing to do in the whole world, The hard part is switching on the damn thing. My brain is switched on. Maybe you can switch your brain on also. So let's have a talk here. Look, all we can do is look at the facts today and base some assumptions on the future. And they're only assumptions. But the reason people think the US dollar is heading south, there's 4 reasons, So they're obvious, but we're going to talk about the money printing, the decline of the US and the West in general, the debt to GDP in the US, and competition to the global reserve currency. Those are the 4 main reasons. So let's talk about them in terms of reality. The BRICS is the USD competition, The BRICS is progressing their partnership. So let's talk about this BRICS partnership. They are making a basket of currencies to rival the USD. One of these currencies is the Chinese yuan, The Chinese yuan is the most manipulated currency on earth. The yuan or the renminbi has the trustworthiness of the Mozambique currency. Nobody trusts the Chinese yuan. Nobody trusts the Chinese, That's just a fact. Sure, think positive and trust them, At your own peril. I'm talking about the people there. Nobody trusts the Chinese government. Not even the Chinese people trust their own government. The Chinese people don't want their banking in China. The Chinese people just want to get out of China. And the ones who can afford to do so. Let's talk about the Russian ruble. The ruble's only strength is in Russia's energy industry, That's it. So basically, Russia is one global invention away from being destroyed. One invention to create energy using nuclear fusion could be created and probably already has been created, but it's just not available to the public yet. Russia and the Russian ruble will be wiped out as quickly as Amazon.com wiped out the shopping mall. It's just a matter of time. Nuclear fusion has been invented and it's on its way. South Africa is in the basket of currencies. Oh joy! This is a country that can't even keep their electricity on. A violent nation that nobody wants to even visit. Basically, South Africa is a third world hellhole that nobody wants to live in. India. Are you investing in the Indian stock market? The Indian economy? No, you're not. How do I know that? Because nobody is. The call center industry started out in India. It later got the hell out of India and moved to the Philippines. So the system in India can't even run a call center properly. Not even Indians want to live in India. As many Indians as possible are trying to get out of India. Tens of millions have emigrated, and that's low. It's only because there's an immigration bottleneck. If unlimited numbers were allowed to immigrate to other countries, India would be empty by now. Are you gonna set up a bank account in India? No, you're not. Why should you? What does it have to offer? What do any of these countries in the BRICS have to offer? On top of that, China and India hate each other. They've had border conflicts with each other for decades and still have today. Brazil. Okay, the shining beacon for BRICS, in my opinion, is Brazil. And it also happens to be one of the most violent countries on the planet. People don't want to visit Brazil. They don't want to be murdered. Okay, that's a great shining beacon for the BRICS. Joke of a currency, as I call it. So let's summarize this part of the video by stating a fact. BRICS currency is made up of the most violent, least trustworthy, least desirable nations on the planet. Now, do you want a BRICS currency or the USD? Okay, so far, let's assess it. Answer me that question. The BRICS or the USD? Now let's get a bit deeper here, folks. Let's look at this issue a bit deeper, okay? World trade is in USD today. Everybody knows that. But the BRICS wants to threaten that privilege. So what's going to happen to the BRICS nations themselves if they begin to undermine the USD? First, they will trade with their own currency amongst themselves, okay? So of the 195 countries in the world, 5 will trade amongst themselves with their kindergarten currency, okay, as I call it. But over time, nations who are neutral, as the vast majority are, these neutral countries who need something from BRICS, most likely China, will trade with the BRICS new currency. Maybe. I mean, maybe China won't budge if Norway wants to spend USD to purchase Chinese products. China will insist Norway use the BRICS currency. The private industry in China, they won't care. They will sell for whatever. Anyone who knows Chinese commerce, anyone who spent time there knows they are not merciful and will do whatever it takes to get another dollar. Trade in the private sector of China will only be done in the new currency if the Chinese government forces private industry to do so. And a neutral country like Norway will say, okay, sure, fine. You know, if I'm forced to, I will. But Brazil, South Africa, they will budge. They need every dollar they can get. For example, Brazil exports food. If they don't sell the food, it rots. They need to sell. Brazil won't put up much of a fuss. I mean, they can't afford to lose commerce. They know they can't afford to lose production. China, maybe they can, but South Africa can't. China, with their, currency manipulation, maybe they can, but South Africa, Brazil, they can't afford to do that. Because these weaker BRIC nations will hold USD. They will still have USD in order to trade with the 97% of countries that aren't using BRICS. Let's take this a bit deeper here. Now, it's the excuse of the USA printing too much during the spoondemic, and they were. The USA should be punished in some way for doing that. Or should they? You're thinking, well, of course they should be punished for printing too much money. But there's one thing you're overlooking. The one thing nobody points out is that all countries were printing money during this time, during the big scary virus. Maybe other countries were not on the scale of the USA printing, but who cares? The world's not going to change trajectory based on one country printing more than another country. How do I know that? Because countries have printed more or less money at different times in history, and it may affect short term, but long term, it has no effect on the currency. Unless you're a crazy dictatorship like Venezuela or that African nation with Mugabe. I lived in Korea during the time of the virus, and my good friend's mother-in-law had a restaurant. Now, this restaurant went bankrupt prior to the virus, okay? Like a year prior to the virus even starting. And she was sent 15 grand by the Korean government in order to keep her business afloat. The government did this since everything was shut down for a while, okay? So basically, the government of South Korea wasn't even really paying attention to their spending and printing. They were just printing indiscriminately, obviously. I mean, if a restaurant closed down a year prior to the virus, would you think it closed because of the virus? So obviously, countries around the world were going nuts, not using their brains, as is the norm for any government around the world, which is the reason governments are completely unnecessary and unwanted. Once people wake up, they'll realize this. But anyways, if a smart country like Korea was printing like nuts, as was the USA, which country wasn't? Now let's conclude here, okay? I mean, if BRICS were to threaten the USD, it would need to be a basket of currencies from economies like the euro, Australia, Canada, the pound, South Korea, Vietnam, Sweden, Norway. You get the idea here, okay? If BRICS included these countries, okay, then that is a real threat to the USD. But these jokes of currencies, which BRICS is, that can't even keep the electricity on, which currently is the BRICS, that nobody wants. These currencies actually coming together is nothing but a joke. I mean, turn off the TV and wake up. Will this new competitor to the USD, the BRICS, hurt the USD as a global reserve? It could. It's not impossible. There are a ton of variables involved. But who cares? I mean, let the better currency stand. And if they can pull it off, well, good for them. All I'm saying that realistically, it's an obvious joke what they're proposing. And it's no threat to the USD. Although the USD may take a hit on the news of the competition actually becoming reality, it will be no different than the Russian ruble taking a hit when the war began. As soon as the reality surfaced that Russia holds more cards than people thought, the ruble gained all its losses back and more within days. But I mean, China using BRICS to trade and Norway using the Norwegian krona to trade or the USD. I mean, is China not going to sell fabric to Norway if it doesn't convert to BRICS? No, unless it's forced to. Will Norway use the BRICS currency just for trade with China or India and use the USD for all other currencies? Yeah, they may very well do that. That's what makes sense. But let's say they did, okay? Let's say they did convert to a BRICS. Okay, then good for China. But Norway's not going to trade with South Korea or Vietnam using the BRICS currency, or for that matter, 97% of all the countries in the world. They're not going to be using BRICS. Anyway, competition in the world is a great thing. So let's be happy for the BRICS currency. But when it comes to the USA, I mean, they're not a perfect country. But let's see it in a realistic way. The entire planet invests in the New York Stock Exchange. Nobody is investing in South Korea, Brazil, Russian stock market. I mean, the world wants to immigrate to the USA. Nobody's trying to immigrate to Russia or China or South Africa. Nobody wants to be there. The world trusts the USA and its currency. USA and its currency do have their weaknesses. And like I said, they could lose their reserve status if great countries came together to form their own reserve currency. No doubt, that would be a real threat. That would be real competition to the USD. But I mean, South Africa, Brazil, China, give me a break, guys. It's a joke. When the world economy is hurting, people hold the dollar. There's a reason for that. Is the USA in massive debt? Yes. Yes, they are, but it's irrelevant because all countries are in massive debt. The argument is that the debt to GDP in America is higher than most. But that's irrelevant. I mean, if debt hurt currencies, it would have hurt the USA a long time ago. The reality is the USD is stronger now than ever before, even with much more debt. And the reason the debt is irrelevant is because all countries are in the exact same position. If printing money hurt the USD, it would have hurt the USD a long time ago. So at the beginning of this video, I said, nobody can predict the future, right? Totally true. And the reason is that there is just too many variables involved. So if quantum physics cannot be used to predict the future, then obviously the smartest people cannot predict the future. But the simplest person can put two and two together and realize when bullshit is freaking bullshit. Wake up, people. This was not a travel video here in the Philippines, guys, as is usually the case. Either a video or a story, but I just had to get some common sense out there, as the USD does directly affect many expats in the Philippines. Just remember that too many people are listening to the media and seeing what they hear as reality instead of using this powerful tool that lies right between your ears. Check out my new channel all about the gov, okay, and why people need to wake up to the reality and ask the question, do we need them? Do we need government? The answer is we don't need them. They steal our money and tell us what we can and can't do. Nobody ever asked the question if we even need them. That's what this new channel is discussing. Do we even need government? And if you think we do need them, it's because your brain is not yet switched on. The link is below. It's just the beginning, but get ready to listen to the reality. Till next time, adios to my very fantastic great brethren.